So our second speaker for this session is Alberto Baccini from the University of Siena. Alberto worked a lot on scientometrics and especially on the bad effects of research evaluation with bibliometric indicators and some the kind of strategic behavior that bad citation policies can induce in scientific communities. He is also the founder. Yeah, I worked with him on this topic in Siena. Actually, I was for 4 years there with him. And Alberto is also one of the founders of ROARS, Returns on Academic Research, which is an Italian blog on academic and higher education topics, which is a great forum of discussion on science policies in Italy, also quite critical of the Italian evaluation agency. And in quantitative studies of science, he has invented the method of interlocking editorship, which is a method to study relationship among journals and trace power relationships in journal boards. So now he presents a talk on who are the gatekeepers of economics, geographic diversity, gender composition, and interlocking editorship of journal boards. Thank you, Alberto. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Eugenio, sorry for being so late. We are all tired and we are going to speak of a very boring topic, economics. So I will start. Okay. I will, given the audience, I will not speak a lot of economics. I will speak about rational methodology of our research. And the research, I'm not alone. We are a small group. Eugenio worked in this group for many years. Rational methodology of our works that can be extended to other fields. Rational. Why study editorial boards? This is the topic of the object of our research and their composition. And why economics is a relevant case studies. These are the two questions that I will reply later on. I will present very briefly our database, the database that we constructed to reply to some research questions that I will show you. I will show you some very long run data about this database, about editorial boards of economics journals, and then I will show you some information about data, very simple data about the structure of gatekeepers of economics in a single year, the last year of our database, 2019. Then I will discuss a bit the way in which we studied interlocking editorship, that is the crossed presence of editors in different journals. I will present the methodology that we used for this. Why interlocking editorship? Why study the editorial boards and their composition? And in particular, why the crossed presence of scholars in journal may be relevant questions. The basic idea started many years ago in 2007, 2008. It was borrowed from economics. In economics, there is a traditional studies called that the phenomenon that was studied was interlocking directorates. That is the crossed presence of the same people in the board of directors of different firms. This crossed presence was considered a threat for markets. In 1914, Louis Brandeis in the United States wrote that the practice of interlocking directorates is the root of many evil. It offends laws, human and divine. Applied to rival corporation, it tends to the suppression of competition and to violation of the Sherman Law. The Sherman Law is the antitrust law of the United States. In 1914, the Section 8 of the Clayton Act, second part of the antitrust law in the United States, prohibited horizontal interlocking directorates for competing firms. The basic intuition is, if I consider the journal as a firm and the board of director as the board of a firm, interlocking editorship, the cross-presence of editors, may be a treat for what Ronald Coase in the 60s called the markets of ideas. In early 2000, economics was rather characterized as a battle between a winning group of scholars and journals, mainstream economics, and a many group of economists under the name of heterodox economics. Marxian economics, Schwabbian economics, post-Keynesian economics are not mainstream. They have not access to mainstream journals. They have their journals, and only if you write papers with mainstream methodology, you can publish in the best journal. So we this is basic idea why economics is interesting from this point of view. Economics was unable, this is again a basic intuition, to forecast the financial crisis and its consequences, the financial crisis of 2007. But this is the famous Queen's questions. Why did nobody notice it? This is a very famous episode of for economists. So economics was unable to forecast the crisis, but mainstream economics was asked the receipts for recovering after the crisis. The policies were based on the models unable to forecast the crisis. The lack of alternative, according to some policymakers, was a very big problem in this moment. The lack of alternative models for explaining crisis and for having receipts for escaping the crisis. Here there is one of this paper. Why alternatives were not available? Probably because the system of science, because journals, top journals, the journals that were read, it's not correct, by policymakers, did not accept alternatives, and alternatives, if there were any, were buried in low-ranked peripheral journals. So the basic idea is we have to study the gatekeepers, the structure of the relations among economists. The preliminary research question was how the economics journals are organized and linked, and who are the journal bosses. Again, what are economics journals? If we consider only the Web of Science indexed journal, we have a very teeny set of journals. So we consider the largest list of journals, the Econ list. The Econ list of journal, it's a list of journals maintained by American Economic Association. In the version that we used, it contains about 8,750 journals. And we started to study the problem for a single year, 2006, and after crisis year, 2012, to see if the situation was changed between pre-crisis and after crisis. After the project was enlarged thanks to funding, Institute for New Economic Thinking of New York paid some money for having this kind of information. Then we have other funding, and we have a database. We are now finishing a database that, starting from 2019, go back every 10 years since 2006, and this database we call Gatekeepers of Economics longitudinal database. These are the sources of our database. That is the page of the journal, the art page of the journal where information about editorial board is reported, and we enter this information manually in a database. This is the structure. Sorry, it is impossible to see. This is the structure of the final database. We have information about names, surname, names, people in the editorial board are genderized in this moment, genderized by using an algorithm. We have affiliation, we have the role covered by people inside the journal. With affiliation, we have also the country of affiliation, city of affiliation, and so on. These are our data. You cannot see here, but our data started in 1866 until 2019. Until 1945, there were less than 100 economics journals. After, you can see the number of economics journals grows. These are the number of editorial board seats, that is the seats available in the editorial boards of the journals, until, again, 1945, there were less than 1,000 editorial boards members. After, we have, at the end of the period, we have 60,000 seats available in journals. This is the average number of seats per journal. As you can see, I think this is the first time that this is documented. Until 1956 and 1966, the structure of journal is stable. 15, more or less 15 people, 15 seats available per journal. After the number of available seats grows. In the last year, the number of seats is 40. These are the editors involved. The editors involved are more 1,000 in 1946, are 44,000 in 2019. And this is the number of journals, the same things. What we can do with this, we can study if you want, we can study the national distribution of editorial board members. We can study affiliation. We can study the distribution for gender and so on. This is a very recent paper. These are the basic data for 2019. I will comment only to one point on this. One of the main objections that we received on this work was that you consider editor as a black box. You cannot distinguish between people who have power in the journal and people who are there for sitting in a seat. So we introduced this the idea of editorial leader. Who is an editorial leader? Editorial leader is the scholar or the scholars with the highest editorial ranking in a journal. It is the editor-in-chief of the journal. But unfortunately, editorial journal, the editor-in-chief is not always declared. So in some cases, we have the definition, we can have an easily definition of editorial leader when the editorial leader is called editor-in-chief or a co-editor-in-chief. But in all the other cases, we consider the typographical position of the person in the page of the journal. For example, in 1906, Quarterly Journal of Economics, there is not an editor-in-chief, but there is an editor, Tausig, who is editorial leader of the journal. So we have a system, again, manual system for classifying this kind of distinction. At this for 2019, the percentage of people in the editorial board is prevalently from the United States and the United Kingdom, obviously, but this percentage are very higher than the percentage of United States and United Kingdom scholars in the demographics of economists. We have the data about REPEC, where, for example, in REPEC database, 20% are US scholars. In our editorial boards, they are 33.6%. This is the gender distribution. The gender distribution is similar to demographics in this case, 25% female editors. I skip this. I would like to discuss a bit the notion of interlocking directorship and the way in which we study this relation. Basic unit of analysis is the cross presence of the same scholars, on the editorial board of two journals, and we represented editors and journal by social network analysis as a bipartite network with two sets of nodes, editor and journals. The edge between two nodes is the relation editor 3 seats in the board of journal 1. This is the very simple representation of our database. This is, I'm sorry, not so well visible. Here, the red nodes are people, green nodes are journals, and you can see where people sits in the journal. This is a small piece of our database. This is the giant component of our database in 2019. Red are journals, blue point, I'm sorry, not so visible, are scholars. We have in this graph more or less 44,000 scholars and 1,500 journals with 60,000 notes. To work with this kind of representation is very complex, so we projected the bipartite network into one mode network to simplify analysis, and we study, I will present later, the one-mode projection where nodes are only journals and two journals are connected if they have some common scholars. In this case, for example, Journal 1 and Journal 2 have two common scholars in their board. So in the projected network, J1 and Journal 1 and Journal 2 have a link of weight 2. At this point, in this representation, we mix two different things. We mix editorial power and prestigious of the prestige of scholars, in the sense that a scholar with editorial power has the power to decide the editorial line of a journal, but there are many scholars who sit in many journals without having editorial power, without being editor-in-chief. So we have to disentangle, we try to disentangle these two different ways of being inside an editorial board. For this, we built three different networks. The complete network, where we consider all scholars and all journals. A second network that we call no editorial leaders network. In this network, contains all the journals, but only links generated by people who never has a position as editorial leader. This is a representation, if you want, of prestige, not of power. And then we have a third representation. We consider only the network with only editorial built by the crossed presence of people who are at least once editorial leader in a journal. These are, okay, this is a bit better. These are the three networks. As you can see, the structure of the networks is rather clear. We have a center and a periphery in all the three networks. The first network is much more dense, much more connected in the center. The third network, the one generated by editor-in-chief, is much more fragmented, but it has also a core structure present, less dense than the other two. These are data about this. The editorial leader network has less edges, it is less dense, it is more fragmented. This is the structural, the main structural feature of the comparison of the three networks. This is a very impressive description. We have the possibility to measure the structure of this network. We built a measure of similarities between journals, and we transformed the three networks in three similarity networks. I will skip the technicality. And we measure the structural distance between the three networks. The three networks, this is a complex measure, generalized distance correlation. The maximum value of this measure is 1. As you can see, the three networks are very highly correlated. So the prestigious, if you want, power and prestige tell the same story, or more or less. Second step, when we consider the three difference network, do journals form different clusters, different communities, according to the way in which the network are built? We used for these two different community detection algorithm, the Louvain algorithm, and the Leiden algorithm. The results that we found are completely are the same. The value of the RAND index is near 1. And the most important result is that whatever the algorithm that you use, the structure of cluster, that the way in which journal cluster in the tree network are substantially the same. Also, in this case, we consider an indicator of the good notes of the association among cluster, and we have a very similar clustering. This is the result, a clustering, one of the two clustering of the complete network. Different color indicates different groups. I will not discuss the content in this moment. It is not so relevant. The things that I think it is important to show is that we have a very big purple component composed by all. I know it's not so correct, but green are mainstream economics journal. It's called, sorry, purple are green mainstream economics journal. Green are essentially finance journals. Many heterodox journals, for example, journals of my original field, history of economic thought, are in the periphery, in the blue group. How we interpret these results? We interpret these results in terms of homophily. The three networks are highly correlated structure. They are partitioned in communities that are also highly associated. This indicates that board members generate similar connections among journals regardless of their role. So, editor-in-chief, no editor-in-chief, all people give rise to determine the same results from the point of view of communities, or from the point of view of the structure of the network. This indicates that links between pairs of journals tend to be redundant. These links are generated by editorial leaders, and the other members of the board tend to replicate the same links. This suggests a high degree of homophily inside each board. This is a conjecture, it's not and our conjecture is that members of members of the board that have power tend to hire as editorial member people who are similar to them from the point of view. From what point of view? We are working about social relation. These are social relations. Next question. The social relations are also intellectual relations. If we studied this kind of representation, considering instead of social relation, the relations between the bibliographic coupling network among these journals, the results are the same. This is a very complex task. We work with this in a paper in 2020 with Eve, and we showed that for 3 fields, communities in journal networks based on bibliographic coupling based on co-authorship network and based or interlocking editorship, are highly correlated. So social relations are a proxy also of intellectual relations. What is the advantage of working on social relations? That with our data, we can go back to 1866, and this is not possible with citation data. Conclusion. The interlocking editorship phenomenon was diffused among economics journals in 2019. The interlocking editorship network shows a core periphery structure. Core is structured by the cross-presence of the most powerful scholars who are at the center of the core, our editorial leaders. The links of the core are reinforced by the presence of people who are not editorial leaders. Journals in the periphery are connected to the core by prestigious scholars. That is, people who are in many journals, who sit in many journals, tend to link periphery to the center. There was in 2019 a strong prevalence of United States and United Kingdom scholars. There is a strong prevalence of male in editorial boards. Our conclusion from the point of view of economics is this is a danger for pluralism in economics. And probably we suggest in the paper that we show that we have a case of normal science without alternatives. We have no alternative paradigm to the winner paradigm in this in economics. Next step, I will find. When did this structure come into being? When did this structure start? We are studying this problem. This is a very simple. This is the representation of the giant components of economics journal, the same that we saw for 2019, for 1956. These are the most central journal connected, and here for people who know economics journal, there are very strange results. For example, in the core, we have a journal as at the center of the core, Metro Economica, who is now in the last photograph on the extreme blue periphery of the journal. Here we have a group of Italian journals. Now Italian journals are not in the core. Probably they are not in the periphery. They are isolated in other space. And the top 5 journal of economics are there, not all, but are not so central. We have Econometrica, who is one of the top journal of economics, but Quarterly Journal of Economics, American Economic Review, and Review of Economic Studies, one of the top 5 journals in economics. 3 of the top 5 journal of economics are in the periphery and are not connected directly to Econometrica. So between 1956 and 2019, the world of economics is changed, at least from our observatory. We have to discover, we don't know this moment, when the actual structure emerged from this more pluralistic representation of economics. Yeah. This is the list of self-references. Only self-reference.
Thank you very much, Alberto. So we have some time for questions. Andrea, please.
Thank you very much for this very intriguing and lovely analysis, which sheds another kind of light on all the journal connections which have been indicated or studied for a long time. One thing puzzles me, yeah? And maybe you can solve it. So I usually tend to think about the growth of science and that we have more isolated sort of communities. Your findings indicate that at least for the journals covered in this list, which of course is also a specific selection, you have almost like an invisible college kind of steering the development in the field. Yeah. How does this go together? So where is the growth and the scattering happening, or is my thought on that we get new fields popping up and they are disconnected? Maybe that's an illusion, not to say a delusion. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. Really, I think that behind these groups of journals, there are invisible colleagues. If we consider the other projection of the network, I presented only the projection of journals, but we can make the same things by considering these other groups, this other projection. In this projection, the nodes are people, and we have if you want, a representation of invisible college in a very peculiar way. This is the way in which they sit in the board of journals. I think that for the way in which the network is built, in 2019, we have the result will be a very big unitary, a very giant group of economists that are all connected, we have, as you can see here, there are some very very few journals that are disconnected from these giant components, and these probably are journals that are not well classified by American Economic Review. For example, here we have the separated journal because, for example, American Economic Review consider as economic journals chemometrics. Chemometrics is a journal of quantitative chemistry that is not connected to the rest. Sometime some economists wrote in chemometrics, so it is an economics journal according to American Economic Review. Our problem is, but when this unitary structure emerge, I don't know. My first impression is that for data before 1936, we have very disconnected component with invisible colleges that are country-based in many cases, or that are topic-based with journal considering only one. When this unitary structure emerges, I don't know in this moment. I don't know if I replied the question.
Thank you for this very fascinating study. It's really enjoyed it. And I have, well, my first question, it's been partly addressed by your very last remarks, because I wanted to ask you about the national journals, the journals in national languages that I think were prevailing in most of the time series that you showed us. And so clearly, first of all, I didn't understand whether they are covered in your data set or we're just talking about the English-speaking econ literature, and whether the, let's say, the choice of English as the natural language of economics has also, if you think that, has also favored a sort of reduction in the spectrum of ideas or in different types of things that came about. So that's my broader question. Okay. Somehow related to that, so you gave us a sense clearly of the interlocking parts, but I wanted to ask whether you had a sense of the diversity of ideas that was around during the time frame, and whether that somehow is related to the network. Because I think that the way in which you framed your talk, so the way in which I think you made your story very interesting, is about the variety of ideas. So I'm very curious about what you can see with this data.
Coverage of the database. We used, sorry, I'm not so clear in my presentation. We used the American Economic Review list because the American Economic Review EconLit list of journals did not cover only English language journal. For being indexed by EconLit, you have to, the journal must have title in English and summary in English. So we have many country-based journals. We have all Italian journal, all Spanish journal, all French journal, also if they are written in French. So the second question, the language, maybe yes, I don't know. My impression is not that the problem is not the language, is the way in which country national communities relate with other communities, in the sense that many communities start to publish journals in their own language many years ago. At a certain point, this journal became universalistic. Many national-based journal published in English from the 40s and from the 50s. Maybe that the acceleration of the last years is an explication of the lack of diversity, but I think that our data are not able to reply to this question. As for the third, the most complex, we try to in the paper that we wrote with Eugene Gray and Madi Kalfoui a couple of years ago, we worked by giving some legends to the groups, and these groups are the same when we consider interlocking editorship, co-authorship, and contents based on bibliographic coupling. So we have journals about I don't remember the classification of the paper, but we have microeconomic journals that are more connected, macroeconomics journals that are more connected, form a different community. For the future, we are working on this. For the last 3 years of the database, we are building a parallel database with abstract of all articles of the journals, and we are studying the relation between the journals observed through interlocking editorship and through abstract through context. I hope. My guess is that we have the same results. My guess, but I don't know. We have to wait at least 6 months to have a first draft of this analysis.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Amazing, I liked it. And so I was thinking, the way you presented it, you hinted here, right, that there was that possibly one of the drivers for these interlocking editorships could be that these people were somewhat related intellectually or somewhat related, maybe even socially, right? And I was wondering if we could maybe explain this whole phenomenon, right? The fact that these interlocking editorship came to emerge only by assuming that scientists and people choosing who to put in the editorial boards were just selecting what they would consider the best researchers around. Right? So I'm thinking a situation in which there's more than one paradigm, right? So more than one scientific system. And then it seems maybe reasonable to imagine that if one scientific system gets some edge in the beginning, they could just keep evaluating researchers based on their scientific system, and they would basically include them in the editorial boards until basically putting out all the other scientific systems. And put like this, it seems that there's no really, like, it's hard to tell, it's hard to say that these researchers were actually doing something bad, right? So it seems that if they were only basing their judgments on who to include based on their ability, their quality as researchers, measured based on a certain systems, then maybe this is just how it's supposed to be. I don't know. I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate here.
Well, if I can be provocative, I think in this last year, it is ideology that is the main driver of selection. If you are a Sraffian researcher, or you are the best post-Keynesian researcher of the world, you will never be selected for being a member of the editorial board of one of the top 5 journals. Top 5 journals do not like Sraffian economics. Economics like top 5 journal does not like post-Keynesian economics. It is impossible to publish a paper on these themes on the top journals. And the selection of people are based not on quality, but on homophily. I think this is, I don't know if this is a possible.
Couldn't it be quality based on a specific set of criteria, which is then, of course, one of the many ones, but that's still quality, or not?
Okay. It's the quality as defined by the winners.
Yeah.
It's the quality defined by the winners. If you have in economics, the impact factor is not so well it's not well considered. You are well considered if you write in one of the top 5 journals. If you write in one of the top 5 journals, you have a very high probability to be selected in a central journal average. If you don't write in one of these journals, you are not selected at all. It is quality. Is this quality? Maybe also not.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know him very well, and I like what works on. So, I mean, but I like also playing the role of the advocates, of the devil's advocate. And so
Yeah.
I will try to to criticize a little, but just
Yeah.
So first of all, I never reflected upon this, but the very basic metaphor you apply here is that actually the market of ideas.
Yeah.
Which is a very neoliberal perspective.
It started from
Yeah, you start from neoliberalism. So, and this is quite surprising. No, in the sense that, I mean, how far you can push the analogy is quite, I don't know. So do you mean that all such firms compete in the same world market? So this is a very, it's like there is a paradigm and all firms compete for the whole market. Is there one market only? Is it possible to control the whole market? So this is the first question, because of course, I mean, there is a kind of a sort of homogeneity assumption at the very beginning of the research. So this might be a point upon which to reflect. Second thing, well, barriers to entry in a market, since you want to adopt this kind of analogy. What about barriers to entry? Because of course it could be very easy, and now it is very easy to create a startup. The costs for a new journal are very low, whereas it could be that in earlier periods the startup costs were very high, exactly because they were based upon reputation. Now widely was mentioned today. So this might be a difference to be taken into account when reflecting upon the time dynamics here. So it may also be that actually, these kind of structures codify earlier latent structures in economics. So there could be a certain lag, which causes the interpretation to be very difficult. So as regards today, the slide concerning 1956. Now you say that this was a kind of pluralistic outlook in economics based upon how journals structured the discipline. Well, this is the situation which produced in economics imperialism in very few years. So this is a pluralistic situation which caused the most monist situation in economics, with one paradigm only, one ideology. And actually, today's economics, it is as if the map you are giving us reflected the era of economics imperialism. So as if there were some kind of 20 years lags in the picture. Now, I would say, well, we live, and now Brad Ray will tell me that I am a mad, but I mean, we live in a post-Kuhnian or a later Kuhnian era in which it's specialization which basically drives progress. And I would even say that perhaps this is prestige without theory or prestige without paradigm, because I don't think that neoclassical economists, those in power, are still persuaded that they have a common paradigm uniting them all. So is this ideology? I don't know, but in this applied term in economics, it might also be that actually these big stars in the interlocking editorship affairs, well, these are basically applied economists who are not so concerned with the spread of a certain kind of theory. And this might be a word in favor of possible pluralistic outlooks in the discipline. So I would be less pessimistic than you are. And I would not say, because actually, yeah, the startup costs today are very low. Perhaps because of this collapse of the previous paradigm in economics. So this might produce a more pluralistic situation with respect to the one that was at stake in previous years. But okay, only suggestions, of course.
Now, very complex question. Very briefly, I started by cause, not because I am neoliberal or I think that the metaphor of market of ideas is good, but because it was really the way in which we started to think to this problem. if in this moment I have another story in my mind. Yeah, this is absolutely true. Our photographs, our networks, probably individuate the results of previous pieces of history. I'm very curious to understand what it happens before and after the financial crisis. This is one of the tests that we are conducting in this month for understanding the changing, how a shock, external shock to the structure of the epistemic structure of a discipline impact on the discipline itself. Here, I think this is a giant component of the network, but this giant component this is not so well visible, is composed by many different communities inside. This is the giant component, but different colors. Here we have at least 20, 25 colors are probably interpretable in terms of specialties. So when a new journal arrives, it is rather incredible that it positioned here in this network. Probably it is not in normal condition. It arrives finished in the periphery, at least when they started, and then he was attracted toward the center if it is coherent with the ideas of the scene, of the center. My presentation is very rough, but I think that I would not to have to pass the idea that this is a unitary structure. This is a many fragmented structure, but with people working who are not so distant from a social point of view.
Thank you. Very interesting. Okay, I just want to summarize to make sure I understand. So you have these bipartite networks with journals and with also the editorial board members.
Yeah.
And what gives the journals power is the fact that the same editors are associated with all these powerful inner circle journals.
No.
The same editors are on multiple journals, right?
The same editor in multiple journals. Okay.
Yes.
But this is not a question of power. This is our distinction. If I made an example. Amartya Sen, Nobel Prize for Economics, is the most present scholar in this network. He has no power.
But he's on the editorial boards of the most journals.
He has many journals. If you the most powerful people in this network is James Ekman, another. It is editor-in-chief of the Journal of Review of Economic Studies, one of the top 5 journals in economics, and it is connected to 103 other editor-in-chief.
Okay.
This is power.
Connected to the editors-in-chief or connected to the other journals?
Here connected to editor-in-chief. It is more or less, I don't remember.
Because he serves on
12.
the editorial. Sorry, because he's on the editorial board of all of these other editorial chiefs.
No, we have a distinction between editorial leaders, editor-in-chief, if you want, because simplified, and all the other editors. We define as power editor-in-chief, and prestigious scholar, all the others. So we have James Heckman, very powerful because it has many links and it is editorial
But
in chief, and Amartya Sen, who is not editor in chief, but it is a prestigious scholar, and it is selected by journal, sorry, for for gaining. Okay.
Sorry, I think I understand, but I have a question because what I'm missing here is that, and because I serve on an editorial board, but they're not doing the work of reviewing the papers, really. I mean, how often would he be reviewing? He's connected to these powerful editors, but he's not reviewing the papers of all the, like, he's just there symbolically, in a sense, right? Or maybe he's asked from time to time, can you select a reviewer for this paper? But it's the reviewers that are choosing which papers go into the journal. So I wasn't sure that I understand the meaning of the network that only focuses on the editorial board members.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
it's made by the editors and the
The editorial board choose the.
But it's the
referee.
reviewer that influences the decision.
Yeah.
Projections as well.
Sorry?
There's projections in the first direct power.
Yeah.
This projection is before you ever send it to your right?
Yeah.
And it's the power to say no is immediate. And then, of course, their reviewers need to like it, but also they choose their reviewers, so, and they kind of know their being, who's harsher, who's milder.
Okay, there's that, but I guess I just think, I mean, I was asked to review it. I'm not on the editorial board of Nature, but I was asked to review a Nature paper, so is that, you know what I mean? Sometimes I think that the workers that are actually reviewing the papers sometimes really have a lot more influence in this regard. I'm not sure, okay.
So quick reply, and then
Yeah.
can continue on the
Yes, I
conversation.
understand that it's done by the editor. In the case of Diaz, all the reviewers, and don't publish that, this guy is the fraudster. They just said, that's a nice paper, we publish it.
Okay.
And in the end, they retracted it because the
Yeah.
reviewer was right, the guy is a fraudster.
Obviously, the referee has some power, but
Yeah.
the power, the final power, the final decision is of associate editor and then chief editor in chief. So this is the basic idea. Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much, Alberto.